Tonight, the balance of this war may have shifted forever. What intelligence sources are describing is not a setback, not a retreat, but a potential annihilation. An entire Russian field army, tens of thousands strong, may now be trapped, cut off, and running out of time. If confirmed, this would be the most devastating military disaster for Moscow in more than 2 years of war, and one that could redefine everything that comes next. Here is what we know.
Good evening. Tonight we are following developments that could mark a turning point in the war in Ukraine, one with potentially historic consequences for Russia's military and political leadership. According to multiple defense and intelligence sources, a major formation of Russian forces operating in eastern Ukraine may now be surrounded and effectively cut off from resupply. Early assessments suggest that the number of troops involved could reach into the tens of thousands. If confirmed, this would represent the most serious battlefield disaster for Moscow since the collapse of its initial invasion effort in early 2022.
This is not simply a localized setback. What is unfolding has the potential to reshape the entire conflict. The reported encirclement is centered in a strategically vital area spanning parts of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, territory Russia has spent nearly a year attempting to seize at an extraordinary cost in manpower and equipment. Preliminary estimates from Ukrainian and NATO-linked sources indicate that as many as 70,000 to 80,000 Russian personnel could be trapped inside this pocket, including frontline combat units, support formations, and critical logistics elements that sustain prolonged operations.
Those forces are now said to be isolated, with key supply routes cut and no clear escape corridors remaining. Ukrainian units, after months of preparation, appear to have launched a coordinated operation over several days, targeting vulnerabilities rather than heavily fortified positions. Instead of attacking Russian strongpoints head-on, Ukrainian commanders focused on weak seams between units and lightly defended transport corridors, achieving rapid and unexpected breakthroughs. From the north, Ukrainian formations advanced southward from areas recently liberated near Lyman. From the south, other units pushed north from positions around Donetsk city. At the same time, Ukrainian airborne and special operations forces purportedly carried out deep strikes behind Russian lines, capturing or disabling vital road and rail junctions. Together, these maneuvers formed a classic pincer movement, gradually sealing off Russian forces concentrated around towns such as Kremlin, Rubizhne, and surrounding settlements. Military analysts say an encirclement of this scale would be unprecedented in modern European warfare. The consequences could be devastating. A successful containment and reduction of this pocket would destroy a large portion of Russia's remaining effective combat power in eastern Ukraine and threaten the territorial gains Moscow used to justify its claimed annexation of the region. More broadly, it would demonstrate that Ukrainian forces, equipped with Western weapons and backed by advanced intelligence, are capable of executing large, complex offensive operations against a numerically superior adversary. To understand how this situation developed, it is necessary to look back at the months preceding it. Much of this front had been defined by a brutal war of attrition. Russian forces, including Wagner Group mercenaries and penal battalions, focused heavily on the grinding battle for Bakhmut. The objective was as much symbolic as strategic. Capture the city, claim a victory, and use it as a launch point for further advances.
But this fixation came at a cost. As Russia concentrated its best remaining assault units and enormous quantities of artillery ammunition on a single urban battlefield, other sectors were left thinly defended. Units tasked with holding ground near Kremlin and surrounding areas were often under strength, poorly motivated, and exhausted. Many consisted of recently mobilized reservists or formations rotated out of the Bakhmut fighting with little time to recover. This created a dangerous vulnerability. Russian lines bulged outward, forming a salient that was exposed on both flanks. Ukrainian intelligence, benefiting from extensive surveillance, reconnaissance, and Western intelligence sharing, appears to have identified this weakness well in advance. What looked like a static front line was, in reality, a slow-moving target.
Ukrainian planners reportedly maintain strict operational secrecy. While global attention remained fixed on Bakhmut, and analysts speculated about possible Ukrainian offensives in southern regions like Zaporizhia, Kyiv quietly assembled its strike forces elsewhere. Newly formed assault brigades, trained on Western equipment such as Leopard tanks and Bradley fighting vehicles, were held in reserve and moved into position under cover of darkness and radio silence. When the operation began, it did not start with a massive artillery barrage. Instead, Ukrainian long-range precision weapons, including HIMARS and Storm Shadow missiles, struck deep into Russian rear areas, targeting command centers, ammunition depots, and bridges. These strikes disrupted Russian coordination and prevented rapid reinforcement. Only then did ground forces move forward in multiple synchronized thrusts.
One axis pushed toward the P-66 highway, a crucial supply route linking Russian forces to the border. Another advanced northward from positions near Bakhmut, aiming to close the southern edge of the encirclement. Meanwhile, Ukrainian special forces reportedly seized a key highway junction near Starobilsk, effectively shutting the last potential escape route. Inside the pocket, conditions are reportedly deteriorating rapidly. Intercepted communications suggest widespread confusion and panic. Units are reporting shortages of food, fuel, ammunition, and medical supplies. Requests for guidance from higher command are going unanswered. Some messages described Russian troops unable to maneuver, pinned down by drones and precision fire. Although the exact composition of the trapped force remains unclear, defense officials believe it includes elements of multiple Russian divisions and brigades, including parts of the 3rd Army Corps and units from long-engaged motor rifle divisions. Local militia formations from the self-proclaimed Donetsk and Luhansk republics are also believed to be present. Most critically, the pocket appears to contain a large concentration of Russian artillery and logistics infrastructure. Hundreds of armored vehicles and artillery systems may now be immobilized. Ammunition stockpiles, fuel depots, and supply convoys are vulnerable to ongoing Ukrainian strikes. Without resupply, Russian combat power inside the encirclement could collapse within days. Analysts believe Ukraine is unlikely to rush into a costly frontal assault. Instead, the strategy appears to be one of containment and gradual attrition, tightening defensive rings, repelling any relief attempts, and systematically degrading Russian forces from the air and with artillery. The ultimate objective may be mass surrender, delivering a crushing military and psychological blow to the Kremlin. For Moscow, the options are grim. A large-scale surrender would be an unprecedented humiliation. A breakout attempt would likely result in devastating losses against prepared Ukrainian defenses. Attempting to sustain the pocket by air would be extremely risky, given Ukraine's air defenses, and may only delay the inevitable. The broader implications are profound. In Western capitals, this operation is already being viewed as validation of military aid to Ukraine. Discussions about providing advanced aircraft, longer-range missiles, and additional armored systems are likely to accelerate. In Moscow, however, the political fallout could be severe. The loss of so many troops and so much equipment would deepen existing fractures between military leadership, private military groups, and nationalist factions. Beyond the battlefield, this development could shift diplomatic calculations worldwide. Ukraine would enter any future negotiations from a position of clear strength. Countries that have attempted to remain neutral may reassess their stance as the perception of Russian military power erodes. For the soldiers trapped inside the encirclement, the reality is stark and immediate. Cut off from supplies, under constant surveillance, and facing relentless pressure, their world has shrunk to a few frozen kilometers of contested ground. Medical shortages are growing acute, vehicles are being abandoned for lack of fuel, and morale is collapsing. If this encirclement is completed and reduced, it will stand as one of the most consequential military events of the war. It would signal that the momentum has decisively shifted and that Russia's ability to sustain large-scale offensive operations has been fundamentally compromised. The coming days will be critical. What happens next may not only determine the fate of tens of thousands of troops, but the trajectory of the war itself.
As this situation continues to unfold, the coming hours and days will be decisive. The outcome of this operation could reshape not only the battlefield, but the direction of the entire war. We will continue to follow developments closely and bring you clear, in-depth analysis as new information becomes available. Thank you for watching. If you found this report useful, consider subscribing for more updates and detailed breakdowns. This is Banana Republic. Stay informed, and we'll see you next time.